Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Old Time Rock and Roll. I'm your host, David Tear, where I've been featuring my personal top 3,000 songs of the rock era from 1954 to 1999. Today, I'm up to song number 2908, and that one is Runaway Child Running Wild by The Temptations. Um, the song was featured. It was a top 10 single from 1969, featured on their 1969 album entitled Cloud Nine. Also featured the hit Cloud Nine. I think that was their previous hit. Also went top 10, I believe. In case you guys don't know, the Temptations had a huge history. They were a very popular band. They got started, I think, in 1960. They were one of the early Motown bands. I don't want to go through the whole history, but they had dozens of top 40 hits. One of the biggest Motown acts of all time. Some of their big hits included "My Girl," that was their first number one in 1965. I think I can name the number ones off the top of my head. My Girl was the first number one. I think the next was Just My Imagination in 1971. And then they had Papa Was a Rolling Stone in 72. And I think they had one other. I can't remember what it was right now. Oh, yeah, I Can't Get Next to You, 69. I skipped that one. They were a very big band. Like I said, one of the biggest Motown acts, also one of the biggest soul and R&B acts of all time. And it's kind of interesting. They went through kind of a change, I'd say, in 69, right around the beginning of 69. All their music up through 1968 was kind of standard R&B. And Motown artists, even though they were almost all African American, to me they sound kind of white. I think they even were trying to make them sound white so that they'd be more popular. I mean, to me, the Supremes, almost all the Supremes songs sound white to me. Even Diana Ross's later stuff, and that's probably a big reason why it was so popular. I think more white people were buying songs by African American artists that sounded white than that sounded like soul music. I think that's kind of unfortunate, actually. But the Temptations, they made a change, I'd say, in '69. They went from sort of this kind of wannabe white sounding music to in '69. They adopted what became known as psychedelic soul, and they got it from another band here called Sly and the Family Stone. They were the first. I think they were the first psychedelic soul band. I guess you might be able to argue that Jimi Hendrix was the first psychedelic soul artist of all time. But he was like a solo artist. I mean, he was obviously psychedelic. I mean, he died from psychedelic drugs, unfortunately. And I think pretty much everybody in the late 60s used psychedelic drugs. It became a heavy influence on a lot of the music of the time. I'm sure for Sly and the Family Stone too. Um, but for whatever reason, it was very popular in the late 60s, so popular that the Temptations decided to use it themselves. And if you listen to their music from, I'd say from 69 to about maybe mid 70s. I don't even know what they did after the mid 70s, but I'd say pretty much the remainder of their career. They adopted this psychedelic soul, and you can tell their music after 69 sounds much different than their music from before. I think better actually. And this song Runaway Child Running Wild. I mean, one thing about the music from that psychedelic period, it was kind of more socially conscious too. I mean, this song Runaway Child Running Wild, I mean, this is about a child who runs away from home. It's got a very serious message. I mean, there was a lot of that going on. I mean, I think there's always been a lot of that going on, but particularly in the 60s. I mean, the 60s, we had a huge generation gap between the young and the old generation. I think a lot of the young generation was very discontent with the older generation. That was a big motivation for rock and roll to begin with. And I think it even became more so in the 60s and the 50s because then it got mixed in with Vietnam and a lot of other issues that separated the generations. But so there were a lot of runaways, obviously, during the 60s. A lot of teenagers were running away from home. And I think, it was pretty unfortunate because I think most of them weren't prepared to run away. I think a lot of them got killed. I think a lot of them got messed up with drugs or whatever. They got, they ended up on the wrong side of tracks. Who knows what happened to them? There was a lot of unfortunate consequences of the late '60s and early '70s, and I think a lot of it was due to a lot of runaway teenagers that didn't really know what they were doing and probably would have been better off staying home with their parents, even if their parents were kind of fucked up. But that's what the song is about, and it's very graphic. The descriptions they use in this song, like, they're describing pretty much everything that most, I think, runaway kids were going through. They didn't bring enough food to bring you eat. They didn't have enough money. They were getting hungry. They were in the middle of these big cities surrounded by people they didn't know. All this was true, and I think it was a really good thing that the Temptations recorded this song, because maybe their message got through to a lot of these wannabe runaway kids. I kind of hope it did. I think most of them did make a mistake, and I think most of their parents weren't as bad as they thought they were. So I think it was a good song, and that's why it made my list at number 2908. Anyway, that's my profile on Runaway Child Running Wild by the Temptations. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.